I've waited a long time to get my hands on one of these, and I finally have an Electra Outlaw bass with the famous MPC modules. There's a whole heck of a lot to say about this bass, but it just so happens that I have a really nice copy of the original catalog that came with the bass, and there's some pretty good copy in here. So I'm just going to start by reading a few lines from here.
Since the introduction of the first MPC 6-string guitar in 1976, bass guitar players have been asking us to make an instrument for them which incorporates the same concept of interchangeable electronic modules. We are pleased to introduce the MPC Outlaw bass, which will satisfy the needs of the professional bass guitarist. Mahogany neck runs the entire length of the body, phase shifter and power overdrive modular powered circuits included. And the MPC Outlaw bass has all the features demanded by top players. Through the body neck promotes better sustain. Special beveling where the neck joins the body, which allows the player easy fingering way down on the neck. Brass head nut for better sustain. Staggered offset Magnaflux lead pickups give a hard driving sound not obtainable with conventional pickups. Tone spectrum circuitry gives 5 different pickup combinations, which allows for greater tonal variety. Special die-cast massive tailpiece allows player to precision set the intonation and height of each string. And there's a lot more.
There certainly is. So we have the Electra X-620. There was a 610 and a 620. And the only difference was the finish color. The 610 had a charcoal gray, whereas ours has the tobacco sunburst. So let's go over some of those features that we just read about there. All mahogany construction with the neck running the length of the entire body. This is a through neck instrument with this really intense kind of heel bevel back there. The catalog states that it has an ebony fingerboard, but this looks like Indian rosewood to me. It does have these really nice Mexican abalone bow tie inlays, which I'm a huge fan of. Each inlay is made of 2 really nice large pieces of abalone. The bass features some tortoiseshell binding on the neck, a brass nut as mentioned, nice chunky clover tuners with a 20-to-1 ratio. And let's talk about what's going on here. This bass is clearly a hodgepodge of many different elements. We've got this pretty much straight up Rickenbacker knockoff bridge. I wouldn't even be surprised if they got it from the same factory that Rickenbacker got its bridges. I have a 4003 and the bridge is pretty much identical. You've got the saddles here all resting on one plate with very limited intonation. You've got these thumb screws which can raise or lower a foam mute. Pickups wise, we have a P-bass pickup, and then this is the Magnaflux pickup that they were talking about, which looks a lot like a Fender wide range humbucker, but it's smaller in form. It's actually I believe the same size as a standard humbucker, but we've got these offset pole pieces here which are adjustable. You've got a volume and tone control, and then this is where things start to get a little funky. We've got these 2 giant switches here which are individual on and off switches for the MPC modules, the modular powered circuit effect modules. The catalog stated that the bass came with the phase shifter and powered overdrive. This one has the phase shifter and the flanger. Each module here is powered by its own 9-volt battery, and they kind of just slide on with this sort of printed fiberglass circuit board design. They made 10 different modules. I will post a list of these down in the description, but each one's a little bit unique, and some of them actually have extra controls on the module itself. So for instance, the flanger here has this little wheel that you can turn with your thumb or finger, one to control the speed and one to control the range. The phase shifter just has a switch on it which is called the color switch, which basically is the range of the phaser. One is a little bit more narrow in bandwidth and the other covers a wider frequency range. Then back on the front of the bass you also have 2 individual pots to control the effects. And you can kind of think of these as like a blend or an amount of the effect. So you can kind of dial in the speed and range of the flanger, for instance, and then this knob will control the intensity, how much of your pickup signal is then fed through that effect. Then up here we have the trademarked tone spectrum circuitry. Basically this is just a 5-way rotary switch which controls the pickup selection. Now let's back up a little bit and talk about the Electra brand real quick. Electra was a brand of guitars designed in the United States but made in Japan. They were one of the many brands owned by the music distribution powerhouse St. Louis Music. Many of you bass players out there probably know that name because they owned Ampeg for a long time, up until I believe 2018 when Yamaha took Ampeg over. Electra was one of their early brands back in the 60s and 70s. And for a while in the 60s they were just kind of putting out a lot of the lawsuit guitars, copies of Les Pauls and other popular Gibson designs. So then in the mid-70s, two gentlemen by the names of Tom Presley and John Karpowitz joined the crew and had some visions for the future of Electra, and thus came the Tone Spectrum, Circuitry, Magnaflux pickups for guitar and bass, and the MPC modules. The guitars were still made in Japan, but it is my understanding that all of the MPC modules were actually made in the United States. There were quite a few notable artists on the guitar side of the Electra brand, but for you yes heads out there, you might know that Chris Squire played one of these Outlaw basses for a while around the Drama 90125 era, most notably on the songs Tempest Fugit and, I believe, Cinema. And in true Chris Squire fashion, his bass was modified to his needs. The bass was completely sanded down and refinished in his signature sort of white cream look. It had a big gold pickguard, and he actually had his routed out to hold 4 MPC modules. I'm not exactly sure which ones he had, but given the sound of what's on this bass, I think the flanger and phase shifter might have been part of it. Maybe one of you out there knows the answer to that. If you do, please post it in the comments or send me an email. I would love to share that information. There's so much more to say about this bass. It really is kind of an innovative instrument. The biggest con to this instrument is that it is very heavy, but that gives this instrument a really solid low end and a really cool tone. All in all, I've got nothing but great things to say about it, and I can't wait to show you some of the sounds that this thing can produce. Alright, so before we dig into the MPC modules, I'm just going to give you a rundown of the Tone Spectrum circuitry here, starting with both pickups in series. I'll do a little finger style, a little pick style, and then we'll go through the other 4 settings. Ignore me as I tell you lies right here. This is actually the neck pickup by itself. Both pickups in parallel. And once again, I am lying straight to your face. This is the P bass pickup by itself. And finally, out of phase, both pickups in series. Alright, now the moment we've all been waiting for. Let's hear what these MPCs can do. I'm going to leave the bass in series mode. So we're going to go ahead and start with the phase shifter, and I've got the switch on the back, the color switch, turned to the more narrow bandwidth, and we'll set the effect to about, let's see what 3 sounds like. Turn it up to about 6. And about 8. So I'm realizing that the knob here is actually controlling the intensity of the effect and the speed of it, because check out what full on 10 sounds like. Pretty unusable. Roll that off just a little bit. Alright, now I flipped the switch back to the wider bandwidth. I left it on the same setting you just heard, which is about 9. Pretty hilarious. I really like this wider bandwidth set a little more reasonably, say about like 4 or 5. You get a nice slow and wide phase. So you get the idea, nice variety there. It's not the most lush, rich phaser that I've ever heard. It's not like a, a small stone or anything like that, but it's certainly useful. Okay, so if you recall, on the flanger module, there's a speed and a range setting on the module itself. I've got the speed set about halfway, right in the middle, nothing too crazy, and then I've got the range set all the way because I just like to hear that full wide spectrum. And we're gonna start with it at about 3. Okay, I know what you're all thinking. Jake, the 14th note of that line should have been a major third, not a minor third. I am sorry. I shot the whole video playing the riff wrong. I did not want to reshoot it. I'm lazy. Can we just say I did it for copyright infringement reasons? I'm sorry. We'll dial that up to about 5.5, 6. Let's go all the way. So you can hear it starts to sort of get resonant. I don't really know the proper term for that, but you get that real high kind of thing happening. But I find if you back it off just a hair, about 9.5, 9, something like that, you get rid of that sort of resonant peak and you get the full range of the effect. So there it is, the Electra MPC, quite a fun machine. Something like this could easily come off as kind of gimmicky, but I think if you know what kind of effect you like and you have a pretty specific application for it, say you're in a Yes cover band or something like that, this could be really useful. I would love to get my hands on some of the other effects. The MPC modules have become exceedingly rare and are quite expensive. Oftentimes they sell for more than the instruments themselves, but I think rightfully so. It's a unique innovation. It's sort of a fork in the road in the guitar world that was never really fully followed, and I get it. A lot of people don't want to tinker around with batteries and extra electronics in their instruments. I certainly fall into that category. It's one of the reasons we kept the fuzz circuit in the grand passive, but I think there is sort of a place for these in guitar history. If by any chance I am able to come across any more of the modules, if anyone out there has any that they want to loan to me temporarily, I would love to pop them in and do some more sound demos. So thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. The Electra Outlaw MPC bass.